That's a new thing. It doesn't
There we go.
Holy moly. What is going on? You know what? I may not be able to be on the screen at all today because
You're gonna be on the screen. You can't get out.
I can't find the mouse. It keeps disappearing.
Well, then you're gonna have to pull your laptop.
Yeah, just bring your laptop over here then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Morning.
What? Yeah.
Hi.
So where's you know what? We got to do intro because we have.
Yes, we have guests today.
Actually, listen to that. That is so
That's
cool.
beautiful.
So this is hometown San Diego, and you can hear that morning revelry from the Marine base. It's pretty nice. Can you hear it?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
I'm
awesome.
sure they can't hear it.
Who's
Sure, there's no way they can hear it.
Well, let's really quick. Like Jesse and I are here, but we're not alone. So we have guests. That's the birds.
Yes.
Those are birds.
Yeah.
It's a call.
So we had birds, we had seals last night,
Oh my
parakeets
God.
this morning. Oh my gosh. Okay.
So who do we have with us today? Who wants to go first?
Well, let's start with you because you're closest.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, it's Lien. How's that? That's it. That's all I got. Lien Randall. There. Cozy cat. Oh, I'm sporting a cozy cat shirt because that house cat from the other day. Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Jesse.
Yes.
I'm a house cat.
I'm Megan Shapiro, and I guess I'm not a house cat. I go to the office every day. So I'm Rocio Luna, and you guys may have seen me on LinkedIn as the commercial insurance producer, also known as for the EMRs, lowering them down to rock bottom.
Right.
Oh, gangsta.
And so what we need from you is if you are out there, and we are coming in a little later today than usual because we know that we've had some people that like it's so early on the West Coast. And so we are trying to accommodate in person and live. So if you are out there and you are watching, if you will, one, let us know that you're there. And two, if it's the first time that you're either watching or you've decided to use your fingers and type this morning, if you will put a blue heart to let us know for multiple reasons. One, because we want to acknowledge you and just appreciate you being with us today. But also when our fellow tribe members see a blue heart, they will reach out, they will connect, they will follow your content. They just jump on and they bring you into this tribe. So if you are first time watcher, first time typing on your computer and letting us know that you're here on your phones. If you'll put a blue heart, we can get you some welcoming.
Yeah. So we've got Lance. I wonder, do you have an Android? Because I think we cracked the nut.
Yes.
About folks, like just so you know, we're not ignoring you if we don't put your comment up. But we think at the Rocio helped us
I have
figure
an
this out,
Android.
right, that if you're commenting live via Android, it doesn't make it to StreamYard. So we still love you, but who do you have?
But you can also, if you're on your Android, I think if you go to YouTube, is it a LinkedIn?
YouTube will work.
I think it's a LinkedIn Android issue. So
Yes.
if you go to the YouTube and go to our platform on YouTube, it will pull in those comments.
So we got a special visitor. What's going on?
Hi, babe. So for those of you who don't know, that's my husband, and my 5-year-old is with him watching right now. So hi, bud.
Oh, we got blue Yes, and there we go, blue heart. So yes, blue heart people. So all of our tribe members now and later will come find you and connect with you. And thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Yes. Then we got Miss Claudia coming in from
Orlando.
East Coast.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh,
She's planning a live stream with her husband.
oh nice.
Yeah.
We like it.
And then Miss Rihanna Gallagher.
Good morning.
She's
Morning.
Normally Denver.
Okay.
Yeah. So she has been hosting. I can't remember the name of it. Rihanna, if you could drop the link to that game that we played, similar to what we're gonna be doing later.
Oh, nice.
It's
Okay.
super
Yeah.
awesome.
Vulnerability.
Engaging. Put that in the chat, please, sister.
Oh, we got people that we weren't sure if they were going to be here. So no, go.
Steve Martin.
Good morning, Steve. And I did, just so you know, Steve, I did add you with Maria to the hosting the after party if you are available. So you are, it's out there. So y'all are.
Why are we having an after party?
We're not, because we get to dig into some stuff here in person. So we let our other people do that.
Hi, Mom.
I did see my mommy. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got Miss Sarah.
And she's here. She's in Hawaii.
How many hours? It's super early for her.
3 hours? I think 2 hours. Like 3.
I don't know. I thought it was.
Good morning,
Wow.
Sarah. Thank you for being here with us.
And then we got, look at Noah.
Oh, nice.
Oh, dude, look at company pick. I gotta go. We need some icy hot, all kinds of stuff. Leslie, what's up, girl? She's back. Last weekend, or the last time we went live, she was at the beach.
Yeah.
And then we got Mr. Bruce.
Good morning. From all over today.
See, the East Coasters don't mind this time slot.
Okay, see,
That's the
yeah.
observation I made.
We do have a LinkedIn. Sometimes that is another.
I'll be able to see
Yeah.
it on my phone. It's just that's a security
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
That is the hanging. That maybe Maria.
That is Maria.
Yes.
Yep.
Good morning, Maria.
Maria is going to be hosting the after party. Yeah.
Yes, and Maria's done this retreat with us.
Oh.
So that is where that is. Her jealousy comes from. She knows what's about to happen. And she said, "Look."
Oh my god. And she apparently came back for more than
Yeah,
one,
she
too.
did. Yeah.
Wow. Really?
Oh, yeah, going to be so awesome. Then we got Leslie. She
Yeah.
said, hello, good
Yeah.
to see you.
Yes.
So, do we have like a topic that we're going to be?
Okay. So the way our topics usually surface is not that Jesse and I, even though Jesse makes people think this, is that we have this big plan. And we've got
900-year
we've
plan.
got it all scripted out, and we have the calendar, and we like assign topics and blah blah blah. That's not what happens. Is we do the live stream, and then we have the after party, which today will happen with some other amazing people. And then through that conversation, it gets deeper and it gets more vulnerable, and more people have questions, and then they're sharing, and then some topics surface through that conversation, and then Jesse and I talk and go, yeah, let's just talk about that next time. And so. Jesse, you and I talked, and so you kind of said, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. How did you come up with this one?
So the name of the thing is how to start a movement like a baller.
Mhm.
And I was explaining to Lien, the reason I picked that title was because I'm lazy. Like I couldn't really articulate in a small number of syllables what I was thinking. But on the after party, there was this conversation about supporting each other. One specific element was how can men do better in advocating for women. And there was like the ether around the conversation was that I picked up on was in some cases, it's like, there's an energy that I get down with, which is like focused on working towards something.
Mm-hmm.
There's an energy that I'm repulsed by that is working against something. So that's kind of where the idea came from of like, okay, there's a lot of people that want to collaborate and do different things. And I maybe on purpose or half on purpose connect with people that are working in a direction. Like it's a positive movement. And there's other people that reach out to collaborate. And I just feel like they're pissing and moaning and complaining about everything all the time, and they're working against something. And so for me, it's a very simple filter to say, yes, I'm going to contribute my energy to this thing, or no. Which brings the question, like, are we even aware of that in some cases? Like, what kind of energy attracts us, and do we like working towards or against? And then whatever the hell that is, whatever that turns into.
So yes, and I guess my question to you, Jesse, and I think this is a good segue into this to kind of start the conversation, is one of the conversations in the after party last time was someone in construction, because that's where we work, and we were talking, he's like, I feel like I very much advocate for women, but sometimes I feel I'm almost protective of them. And I don't know if that hurts them. And so I want to ask you, Jesse, because you and I have had this conversation early on and then throughout, is there is a when we're live, you and I, we know a lot about each other and we can push each other, but we also, there is a little bit of, I've got to make sure I protect each other because we have some probably stuff that doesn't need to be, shared with the world. So is it a protection or a respect?
So between you and I, of respect, and I think it's the results of the volume of contact and connection we have with each other.
Okay.
Because I also know that there are times when I feel like I'm compelled to protect. And also like Josh was saying, is that appropriate?
Right. Does it hurt? Does it hurt something?
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Or something?
Yes. And that's my question, right? Like
that's kind of where this came from.
Yes, that's where that came from. And so again, like for or against, I want to support, I want to contribute, but is it creating a barrier?
Yes. Thoughts?
I have thoughts. I have potentially unpopular thoughts.
That's okay.
Good.
Like the death coach incoming, Josh Lovers out there. So I think maybe for me, I don't mind feeling protected.
Okay.
Right. And this is really interesting because when Josh and Goose and I did I think it was our very first episode of the official episode of the Neighborhood Coffee Shop, we talked about this in some ways because it was like, as you women who post on LinkedIn know, there is a high volume of a particular set of men that will only comment on our appearance in our posts, regardless of how professional they are, regardless of the fact that the content is like, here's a proactive risk management strategy for your construction company. And they're like, looking like you worked out this morning. And I'm like, what? Right. Okay. So
I always thought they were commenting that thinking about me.
yeah, well, probably. And maybe you wanted that. So that's fine. So we talked about it because they were like, do you want us to come in and like as a fellow man diffuse this situation? Or is that like over the like, or are you like a strong independent woman who can handle it yourself, right? My personal feeling, and I'm very cautious about that because I think a lot of women feel differently about this. I don't mind. Like I don't mind the protectiveness as long as it's coming from a place that is rooted in respect, right? To your point, Jesse. Like as long as it's not coming from like the patriarchal place of like, this is my little lady, right? Like this sense of ownership that maybe like for like my husband certainly would have, or maybe Josh and Goose in the confines in the context of our live stream might have, like, no, this is our girl. You can't talk to her that way. This is our girl. Josh and Goose don't have that, by the way. Just disclaimer that they're not they're not like that, and their wives, by the way, would probably kill them too. And so for me, as long as it's rooted in a place of respect and not coming from this place of like patriarchal, I'm going to hold you down. I don't mind being bolstered and supported and protected by the men that I've chosen to surround myself with, because if I've chosen to surround myself with you and I'm spending a substantial amount of time with you anyway, clearly I feel respected by you, or I'm just not going to fucking spend my time with you. Sorry, I cuss on mine. Did we cuss on this one? I'm sorry. I'm not going to spend my time with you, right? So if you're in my sphere enough to feel like you need to step in and protect me, then the fact that you're in my sphere enough is my consent to be protected. So I don't mind it. I don't mind it. And that might be an unpopular take, but that's okay.
That's okay. That's why we talk.
Yeah.
Because we have different perspectives.
That's exactly right. So one thing I forgot to check, we changed the mic audio system here. So if y'all can give us like a thumbs up if you can actually hear us, and if not, I can rearrange the mics here. But let us know. I'm assuming y'all can hear us because we're having like super amazing conversation, and Megan just enlightened us. So thoughts on
feedback on that, on what Megan said or what we're talking about, or just perspective?
Well, outside of the LinkedIn world, like in day-to-day life, at work, particularly in the construction industry, I think any type of support from a man I'll take it. I don't care what it is, but if they would just speak up and maybe reciprocate in the way that I do when I'm in a room, and it has nothing to do with gender, but I want to make sure every single voice in the room is heard, and I don't feel like competing for that. And so when you're in an environment, it'd be nice if every once in a while, maybe a man did step up. Is that protective? I don't know, but I'd like to hear it. I'd like to see someone say, okay, and what do you think? You know?
Mm. Oh.
Thoughts?
I think, going off Megan's words as she was saying, I think any woman in the sixth sense, like if you're in their circle, they feel somewhat protected because people know when someone's being genuine and someone's being straight up a creep. So
Yeah.
a woman knows those feelings. It's on intuition.
Yeah.
So definitely on.
So I'm just gonna go ahead and take credit that I don't have the creep vibe.
No.
They're all here tonight.
Spending the night, we're spending the night with you out of state with somebody we've never met in person.
All right, so let's go to the comments.
Yes.
Okay, so Lex moved over to YouTube.
Nice,
okay, yep,
Frank
nice.
HQ. Y'all need to follow him because he's awesome. Claudia gave us the thumbs up.
Nice.
And then we got some visitors.
I saw Buddy first of all.
I know.
I saw Buddy going, "Good morning, Buddy."
Buddy, what's up? And we got Mr. Abdul coming in from Bangladesh.
Yeah.
And my buddy, Mr. Michael Fina, says, "What's up?" I get to interview Mike with
Nice.
ULA on Tuesday. Oh,
Okay.
and you have a podcast coming out next week.
I do? Oh, with you? Oh, what live stream did I doing? Oh, good.
And then Maria, back to like the meat of the conversation is that part. If the intentions are good, then protect. But if it's for a selfish agenda, then don't mess with it. Don't miss it. Got it. Love it. And so like just another thing, like a weird, I don't know if it's a complexity, but it's something that is in the back of my head, right? Like when I got promoted to superintendent way back, I remember going to like the first superintendent training with all the superintendents, and one person, another superintendent says, "Oh, you're one of the affirmative action guys."
Oh.
And he wasn't saying it ugly. Like that was his honest assessment of the thing. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Right. And so then later it's like, oh, like, am I one of those guys? Right. But anyways, I pursued it a little bit and found out like, no, because I was like, I don't want anyways, that wasn't the case. So fast forward, whatever that 20 years ago, now there's DEI. And there's that kind of resurfaced the same kind of line of thinking around affirmative action. And so in terms of me getting like overcomplicating the hell out of this idea is the struggle that I feel in wanting to support, defend, and advocate women is, will that be seen as, oh, you're just doing this DEI thing, not really honestly supporting and advocating for women?
Okay, but like maybe that kind of goes back to the issue of whether it's rooted in respect, right? Because if your default is to just to automatically support, defend, and advocate for every woman that you interact with and encounter, then maybe that could be the conclusion. Because it's like maybe you don't even actually agree with what she's saying, but you're just default, she's a woman, so I'm going to jump in. But if it comes from like, I've interacted with Jen for 7 years now, and I know her, and someone's not giving her the respect that I think that she's due,
Yeah.
I'm going to intervene on that. I'm sorry, I'm trying to control the cussing. I'm going to intervene on that.
I see you shaking. You're like,
So I think it really comes to that, right? So like, if you really genuinely want to, are coming from a place of like, it's messed up. See, I did it. Messed up. It's messed up that like that you're being discounted for the value that you can bring to the conversation just by virtue of the fact that you're a woman and this person that you're talking to is dismissing you for that reason alone. But I know better, right? Like, to go back to my example of Josh and Goose, that's where they're coming from. They're like, we know how much value you have to add, and you're not being heard because people are dismissing you. So we're going to use our voice to make sure that your voice is given the respect that it's due, because it comes from a place of knowing you and respecting you. So I think that's the fine line. Like, don't be the guy that just automatically steps in to defend every woman in your sphere if you
Right.
don't genuinely act like, because not all of us deserve to be defended, right? I mean, like, say it, you know, good for people, right? Just good for people, right?
Yes. So broaden it up a little bit. So thank you, because that's helpful for me, and I think it's going to be helpful for a lot of dudes out there. Because you're right. If you're a scrub, I don't care if you're a woman, man, or whatever the hell. If you're a scrub, you're a scrub, and I don't want you on my team.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
So zoom out a little bit from the gender thing. There's a lot of conversation about mental wellness and toxic workplaces and respect for people. Now, overarchingly, I'm down with that. But there are some people, some messaging, some lines of thinking that I'm not going to partner up with. Where are y'all on that? Like, let's just say toxic. Well, you pick toxic workplace. Does that feel like a movement or an idea? What kind of energy you get from those kinds of posts and thinking about toxic workplaces?
Well, Josie, I want to pose a question back to you, and then I'll add. So we have a lot of people that we connect with online.
Yes.
And obviously there's a persona that we see, and that's the appearance before we maybe know them well, because we're kind of seeing the things they're posting. And so I want to make you go back a little bit. And I know you've told this story multiple times, but if you can share it, is when you and I connected. You and I connected and kind of got in each other's space. We hadn't interacted in person very much.
Yep.
And yet something drew you, something connected you to go, okay, this is a person that I, want to share space with or whatever. Like, what caused you to make that effort versus just sitting back and watching and observing and, okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So what caused you to do that?
It was all the threats that you
Perfect set.
No, it was so specifically, and this isn't just a Jennifer thing.
Right.
It's kind of like the general filter that I use. But what helped me make the decision to say, yes, we need to be connected and figure out if is there more to do, or let's just spend more time together, was almost all of your messaging on the LinkedIn was people focused, right? Like, how do we do better for people? How can we make things better for people? It was consistent. Now, on social media, it's very easy to be consistent, right? So you don't get extra credit for that.
Yeah.
But you didn't lose points
Right.
for, posting random stuff like I do, because I do that all the time. Anyways, and then when we met in person, I was studying the way you carried yourself and whether you were competing for attention or not. And you weren't. You didn't have to get the last word on every idea and every thought. You didn't have to impose yourself just for visibility. And I deeply respect that. And so it was those, and then after we started hanging out, your willingness to be vulnerable and open up and have these kind of weird ass conversations. I'm like, oh yeah, like this is sustainable. Like what it's gonna be, I don't know, but I can spend more time with this human being. Does that answer?
No, it does. And so to your question is like, what causes you these toxic places? Like what causes you to be in them?
Yeah.
And so for me, not a struggle, but like, what is toxic for you?
I'm going to keep it simple so that we can get the ladies and comments from people in the omniverse.
Yes.
The first indicator, number one thing that I say, whoa, the label on the toxic content or material, complaining.
Okay. What is toxic for you?
You mean on a first
Like in an environment, like this is a toxic person or a toxic environment that I would choose not to want to be with or engage with or around. What is toxic?
Something similar to what Jesse said. Someone who's always just like vying for that voice, that attention, and it doesn't necessarily have to be complaining.
Okay.
But it's just sucking all the air out of the room and leaving nothing left for anybody else.
Okay, Megan, what's toxic for you?
Damaged people who won't work on themselves and don't care that they're walking around injuring other people.
Woo! waiting for that question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Tyra, what about you? What is toxic?
It's always all about them.
Okay.
That's-
Yeah.
And so, and again, that's.
You have an answer. Oh.
And so for toxic for me, and my shirt kind of represents this today because I live in this world, is like, and I don't want people to take this wrong, but like I struggle with people that not just live in a victim mentality,
Mhm.
but like want to stay there.
Yes.
And again, a lot of people are out there, they've got a lot of issues, trauma, things like that we all know, we're all working through stuff. And if you're on that path, I want to embrace you. But if that's your armor,
Mhm.
then I will let you deal with that, but I
Right.
cannot be in that space. So
Yeah.
that's where
Ooh.
that's to me where I have to kind of remove myself because it will drag me down.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. It's just maturity. They're using it for attention.
Yeah.
They haven't grown out of that stage.
Yeah. Or when I see people like, yes, I acknowledge this, and yes, this has sucked, and maybe I've lived here, but I want to do better. Or I'm trying to, allow this to not be what defines me. Those are the places that I'm fine to be in.
I have to go back to something though. Jesse talked about someone had labeled him as that
Affirmative action.
guy, but it was at a superintendent's meeting. And so I wanted to make a distinction too between the world of social media that I'm not really in, other than just a kind of a weird lurker who likes everything. But in the real world, like whether it's at a job site or sitting in a boardroom, because that's the world that I live in,
Mm.
I think voice is important. Being labeled affirmative action or DE&I or whatever that is, because the toxic environment to me is one where people don't walk the talk. And you can put out all you want on social media about the company being, we have a DE&I committee or whatever it is. But if you find yourself sitting in that room and you've got to, pull up your own chair, okay, fine, I like that. I do that. I pull up my own chair. But if you don't have someone else advocating for you and saying, let's hear that voice. So because I love that. At a superintendent's meeting out at a site, someone said, oh, you're that guy. Bravo. Thank you. I want you to be on my team. So,
Yeah, I think we're different and don't ignore it. But I wasn't there because I was the affirmative action. I was there because I was a freaking badass.
yeah.
That's why I was there. And I just had to show up. And guess what? That guy ended up quitting because some of the standards that I had put in place were like unfair.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to do your job.
Yeah.
So question, go ahead.
Oh, no.
Oh, so question to you in the Omniverse. I couldn't figure out how to word it, but like, what toxic signals do you pay attention to? Like, or what are the signals of a toxic situation, person?
Grammar, which we see that we struggle with that, Jesse.
Grammar. That's right. I couldn't. You saw me edit it like fluid. This is what you're getting. So if y'all got something, another Lynn, as you were talking, it made me think of when I'm working another signal. So my answer was complaining, right? And I'm thinking of individuals in that case. Now, as in the way I earn money, what I'm looking for is how readily do they talk about problems?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, do they talk about problems? If they don't, we got a problem.
Right.
If they do, like, okay, we can make some real progress. So maybe that's something.
Talking about real problems though, because sometimes, you're working on a problem. And it ain't the problem. You're looking around going, well, sorry, but you're not addressing the thing. So
That's why, because we typically, I think human nature is to talk about the symptoms of something, like something that's bugging the hell out of me.
The stuff that's not scary.
yeah.
Right, the comfortable thing, right? Like this talk, like, guess what? We're gonna be doing that here later today. And if there's a high comfort level of like transparency and vulnerability to talk about problems, you can ask the question like, okay, well, what contributed to that? What else is going on? And they'll pursue that so that you can get to root causes.
Yeah.
to build a sustainable system to eliminate that problem from ever happening again. If they don't talk about problems, they stay on the surface and you never get to solve the thing. That's, so yes.
Yeah, because we have so many comments. Amazing comments. That's your job, so come on now.
Oh my goodness.
I know, right? And they're big ones. They're not just like, that's a great point. They're like real stuff.
What is going on?
I can't read that far away. I got readers, it doesn't help.
All right, we'll start with Sarah.
Yes.
Oh,
Toxic behavior, is a reflection back to you. Come on, what are we saying? I found when I'm triggered by them, it is something I am to work on. Might be working on my boundaries. I've learned this from Jen and Jess. When people aren't accountable, it was about me being clear on expectations. How do y'all feel about this concept, word, idea, triggered?
I want to hear that. I want to hear these responses because I hear it a lot. I hear it like that. That's a trigger, or these are things that trigger me. And so I would love, So what does that mean? Like, what does that mean to you? And like, how do you use it, or how do you define it? Megan, what about you?
No, I was.
Tell me.
Okay, I always have complicated answers to
That's
everything.
okay. We love complicated.
I think that the concept of being triggered is a very real, very valid thing, right? And I've been in therapy for a long time, so maybe that's why I feel that way. But I also think that on the other hand, I do think that it becomes, for a certain archetype of person, it becomes almost part and parcel with that victim mentality of like, this is my trigger and everybody needs to respect my trigger. And it's like, no, you're responsible for your trigger. I'm not saying it's not a valid trigger, right? Like, I'm not diminishing the validity of your feelings feeling triggered, but your job is to do the work on yourself so that you can walk around the world and not need everybody to treat you like a bubble person.
Yes.
Okay. Like, I'm just saying, right? Just like earlier when I said, like, you can't just be a damaged person and walk around saying, well, I'm damaged, so I don't care what damage I am inflicting because I'm hurt. Like, okay, your hurt might be totally valid. I'm not taking that from you, but it's your job to make sure that you're not now hurting other people. Just like with triggers, like, own your trigger. You like, take responsibility for your trigger. Do what you need to do, because it's not the world's responsibility to help you avoid being triggered.
When most of the world doesn't know it anyway.
Right? It's like unintentional.
They're not even aware, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Lance's, is that?
Yes, bring this up. Lance says toxic trait. Talking trash about somebody else, especially when the other person was just in the room.
oh wow.
Yes.
You like that one?
That's like Mean Girl status.
Yeah.
Like from
Yes.
the movie.
Yes. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that,
Oh no.
I have like one when I'm out facilitating, and it's no bobbleheads. And it's exactly that. Like, if you have an issue, freaking let's throw it out on the table. Don't nod your head, and then afterwards go talk smack like that. That's the absolute worst. Oh my goodness. Let's see, what else we got? Oh, here's Maria bringing out the encyclopedia. She says, trigger is a medical word that folks have overused. Yes. It's a scientific point at which your central nervous system is reliving trauma from a real incident, but it happens after the trauma. Agreed. And I'll just repeat what Megan said. It's like, when I started understanding my triggers, it gave me the space to respond differently to the triggers.
Mhm.
And that was the point, right? Like, what sets me off? There's a bunch of things that create, like, that go into the building and manufacturing of my little triggers. Well, when I know what that is, I can choose my response to it. It's not your responsibility, it's my responsibility.
Okay, so wait, does everybody have triggers, and are you supposed to like be aware of them? Because you build your own self-construct of who you are and how you live and how you react to things and blah blah blah. Is it necessarily like there are things that trigger me to be like completely rigid in my box? And
My triggers are conditioning, they're not trauma. I'm just gonna say.
yeah,
Like mine are conditioning based on growing up, based on the environment I was in, based on the responsibility I was given, it's conditioning. And so I have to own those, but it's not from trauma.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that means it's not a trigger, but
Right.
those are things that I just had to become aware of, which have helped me grow. So
Never really paid attention to it much, to tell you the truth. So yeah, conditioning in a certain way. And we kind of-
Yes, I think absolutely, right? But for me, a lot of my stuff is like defense mechanisms,
Yeah.
right? Of how I coped with
Yes.
my conditions or my trauma or whatever. I dealt with things in a certain way. My response was, but it wasn't conscious, right? Like it's just things that I did. And then becoming aware, or when those things started underserving me and stealing joy from my life, like, okay, I got to do something different. And oh my God, wouldn't it be awesome if all of y'all would change? But that's not reality. Like I had to do my self work and get there. So,
but you got,
let's
really
see
good
what else
stuff
we got.
up here. There's so many good things up there.
So Rhiannon says, yes, when I do psychological safety analysis, the leaders will say it's so safe here, people can tell me anything. And then there are a whole set of people who don't feel they belong, right? So I like that. Let them safe enough to admit mistakes or speak up.
Mhm.
And so again, like kind of back to the thing, how do you start a movement? How do you build this energy where we can go and accomplish great things? How helpful is it when the leader says, right? When I say leader, like the person with the formal authority in the room says, this is a psychological space. Does that make it?
Psychological safe zone, and everybody's like, zip it.
Uh-huh.
I don't think that changes anything.
What do you mean?
Like, I don't think when the person with the most authority in the room stands up and makes a declaration, it doesn't hold any water or any weight or anything. It doesn't hold anything, because if you have to say that and you're declaring it in a room, then like that's that person needing to do that to feel better.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I'm in rooms all the time where the authority is all up and down all over the place. And if I can't observe that it's a psychologically safe zone, then that's the thing we need to address. It's not anyone that has to say it. And sometimes it's on a big room rule. And I mean, there's the rules on the wall and stuff. And so we want to make sure people are aware of it. But when you have to say it, like, I feel like it just almost just takes it to another place, because then everyone's in there going, okay, so now like we are now in a place that it is okay to talk, and I'm glad they let us know that. Like saying that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
And it almost makes it go the other direction.
Yeah.
That's my take on this. And I'm in places where I have to facilitate a lot of conversations, and I need that place to be safe.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of, you get exposed to, I think all of us here get exposed to variations of what that depth of psychological safety is. What do you do to elevate that? What do you do to make it more psychologically safer?
Okay, so I want to answer that, but can you pull up Steve's comment at the bottom, because I think it plays into what I was going to say.
Cheater. Boom. So what Steve says, what signals toxic for me is non-edifying to me or the group? Is that like eating food?
What is that?
Not.
Anything that doesn't move the team discussion towards better is poison to the improvement process.
Okay, so I think what I've observed and what I've seen, and where I think that it is real, is if I am in a room and there is someone with more authority in the room with me, coming in, either adding to the conversation or coming in and just being in the room, when that person with the most authority in the room is part of the conversation and not the one leading the conversation, it is a different environment. And so when I have people with authority as part of the, I don't say audience, but when they are, one, exhibiting the behaviors they seek, so they are getting vulnerable, they are sharing, they are maybe owning some things that are not comfortable, and they are getting outside of their normal little protective box, it creates an environment to say, not only are they saying it, but they're doing it. And that is what changes to me, where I've seen conversations change. And it doesn't mean, hey, follow me, I'm doing it. But they're in a room and they are exhibiting what they're asking people to do.
Yeah.
That's where I think I've seen the space have what we want to have without going, it's safe. Tell me what you think.
Yeah.
And I think we're really good at it. Well, I mean, but that's what we do. And then we wonder why we don't get honest feedback, or we wonder why people kind of close up and don't share, because, well, we told you it was safe, and we told you that you had a platform, and now you're leaving and you're not telling us what you think. And I mean, like, that's not my fault. And they say it just like that.
It reminds me of, I was way back in the day, I was walking one of our superintendents to logging something on our computer. And I always, back then I carried a pocket knife and I used it as a pointer.
Oh, jeez.
Like for real. And so I'm like, right here, you click on this thing and you got it? And I'm are you good? Yeah. And then my boss at the time was like, Jesse, of course he's gonna nod it, like agree. You're freaking waving a knife in his face. I was like, oh, duh. I mean, I don't know if he felt threatened, but it would have made sense if he was.
Yeah.
So Ian, I think, gave us a comment that is in alignment with what you said, right? People will feed into your message and your energy. Your actions are stronger than your words. Lead by holding yourself and others to a higher standard. So you said demonstrating the behaviors you seek. That means all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that part.
Yeah.
It's not like, okay, now I'm going to push the button, and today I'm going to be a vulnerable person, or today I'm going to be an honest person, or today I'm going to respect the people in the room. I mean, like, those are easy. Those are buttons that I can turn it on and turn it off. And just, it goes back to start the very first question I asked you on, like, how did we even connect and how did this work? You were looking at body of work. You were looking at everything. You weren't looking at, how did she show up online? Okay, well, that's somebody like you there. If you're not that person everywhere, and you're not showing up the same, and we're in different places. And so you can't be the exact same person based on who's in the room, but who you are. If you're changing that depending on the room you're in, that's a problem.
And I'll add that I know I have to like throttle the volume and intensity,
Yes.
right? So I may not be as intense and playful in some cases than I am, or in some situations I am in others. But there is a connecting thread, common thread there. What do you think, Rocio? Spotlight. She's like, oh shit.
I know, drinking my coffee, I was like, oh, it's so good. I like the conversation, and I'm just like nodding my head.
Love it. So Leslie shared a nice quote. The problem is not that there are problems. The problem is expecting otherwise and thinking that having problems is a problem.
Oh,
Right? The way I would summarize that is, do I respond punitively and negatively to problems, or do I celebrate problems? Right? Because if I celebrate problems, not like, yay, we suck, but
Right.
we know the problem because now we can do something about it. And it's not your fault or your fault or your fault. There's a problem that we need to evaluate to do something.
In our world, it's opportunities for improvement, and it's exciting, right?
Yeah.
Never look at it as a.
Yes. Let's see what else we got. We got Miss Dara. Ooh, I like this one. I am curious if people think triggers are tied to judgment too. Might it be judgment of ourselves or others? What do y'all think about that?
Megan, what do you think?
I want to know what Rocio thinks.
the triggers. Can you repeat the question?
Yep.
The
People think triggers are tied to judgment
too.
Yep.
I think if the shoe fits. I think triggers, they could be tied to judgment. It's something that they might feel that's like attacking their self-esteem or something personable. But I think triggers are more tied to the asserting emotion that might might have been something in the past, like an event. So I think triggers are tied to an event more than a judgment.
Yeah. I see lots of yes, Jen. So I know you're
No,
pull those
they're
out.
having gratitude.
He does it. He only pulls the ones just like, yes, exactly
Yeah,
what
they're
I'm
Jen.
Honestly, the triggers are still confusing me. I don't understand this. Do people
Okay.
walk around with triggers? I don't understand. A lot of people do. And so they wear it as a badge, like, this is my trigger, so you just back off.
Well, no, not everybody.
Yeah, I guess I still don't understand it. I mean, are you guys encountered by people with triggers? What does this mean?
Well, I have to, so you are surrounded by people with triggers too. Jen said she has triggers, right? Hers are based on conditioning, some of mine are conditioning, some of mine are trauma. Like most people have, maybe it helps to think about it this way. I think of kind of a trigger as once you become aware that you personally have one, it's recognizing that you're responding to a certain stimulus in a very specific way consistently over time, every time. And it's not necessarily not conscious, right? So like, you're like, oh, like, it comes up with parenting a lot, right? Like a lot of new moms realize when they have a baby that's when they finally realize that they get really triggered or overstimulated by a crying child. And it makes them have a reaction that they don't like, they don't want, right? Like they're like, oh, and it's usually conditioning because that's how their mom responded to them when they were whatever. You go deep into the psychology of it all, but once you realize, like, oh man, every time this particular stimulus happens to me, I always involuntarily respond this particular way without making a conscious choice about how I actually want to respond to this particular situation. And maybe my response isn't even really related to this particular stimulus. That's a good indicator for me that I'm responding to my own trigger.
That's a personal thing. It's not that we're supposed to walk around recognizing
No.
everybody else. It's just we're talking about owning your own.
Yes.
Yes.
So if a certain person walks into a room and all you want to do is punch his or her face every time you see them,
Yeah.
that's a trigger.
That's
And you
my
might want to,
Yeah.
remove yourself from
Yeah. And maybe do some digging about what it is
Got
about
it.
that person that makes you just want to punch him in the face.
Got it.
Like maybe they remind you of an ex-boyfriend
Right.
who treated you particularly poorly. That's a trigger.
It's
Oh,
no-
now there's trauma. I better figure that out.
Or every time you have something really pleasant, motivating, and inspiring, you think of me. That
That's conditioning.
I want to share. I want to share a trigger, but I also want to share like the way that I deal with it.
okay.
So, those of you that don't know me very well, control is an issue for me, and it's not that I need 100% control of everything. That it's not that it's that when I feel I'm losing control, when I'm in an environment that I feel I'm losing control of it, and whether I need to be in control or not, my response is very elevated. My tone gets, I get louder. I feel like I need to take back control. And in those environments, sometimes it's with my kids. Sometimes it's in an environment that, I'm feeling, whether it's attacked or I'm getting defensive. That is not anybody else's problem but mine. And they could be saying things that are not that are not right. And it doesn't matter. I don't have control over those things. I have control over my response to those things. And so for me, knowing, and Jesse knows this too, this is something that I am constantly working on, is one, letting go of some of that control, because it's an illusion most of the time. But also, like, how do I work through, if I have control or if I don't have control, it doesn't elevate me to the point where I'm creating disconnections. And for me, and I use my kids all the time, I more times than not will elevate because I feel like I'm losing control. And all it does is create more disconnect between me and them. And I'm now trying to like not respond, keep my voice like to the point to where they even go, "Mom, you're getting loud," or like, but like they know. And I said it not just like, I'm going to work on this and hopefully our relationship's better. I will say, I struggle with this. You caused this because of these things you do. I'm going to work on these things. Can you work on these things? So then when we're in that environment, it's not just me attacking and stuff like that. And so again, it's me. Like, I will own that. It's not me going, they caused me to respond this way.
But you know what? I like what you just said. So you'll own it. You'll tell them you've triggered me. And so I'm going to work on this, but I need you to work on that. I really like that because I'm finally like understanding what you guys were talking about in terms of triggers. It made me think of something my dad used to tell me. He would drop me off at this job I had on his way to work, and I hated it at the time. And he said, look, no one can make you mad. You make yourself mad, or something to that effect. And I was like, oh, okay, so then you just have to try to figure out how to deal with it. But I like what you just said. This is my issue. I'm a control freak. You guys have triggered me. I'll work on this, but I asked you to do A, B, or C. So I need you to work on that too. I like that. Why should you have to carry it all by yourself?
Right.
You know, let's work this out together.
Yeah, and that's I'm on that boat. So we got some good
Okay.
pointers here.
Yes.
So MD Abdur says,
Go back to the topic.
I think that this is an important tie. We're talking about the triggers and advocating and all these other things. To start a movement like a baller, define a clear vision, know your purpose and goals. Build a strong team, assemble passionate, skilled individuals. Leverage social media, use platforms to spread your message. Engage your audience, connect personally and inspire action. Staying consistent, keep your message and actions aligned.
Yes.
Yep.
What excellent job. Thank you for bringing us back. Now, but for real, so a movement, it's easy to think of these big giant audiences or groups or communities and followers and all that other bullshit, right? Which is valid. But the way we treat, understand, articulate this idea of triggers and psychological safety and support, what's the connection between what our buddy just posted and those other things? Or maybe another way to think about it, what do you do from the micro level to the macro level? And I feel, I'll just say it, I feel everybody is over or blind to the micro level because we keep thinking of the hordes and the groups and the masses and the numbers. And we don't talk about me, what I think and what I need from you. And I feel like that's where the traction happens in terms of starting a movement. What do y'all think?
I got an opinion.
Hey,
Come on.
So I often think about work. It's everything that happens I take in the context of work. And so even what our participant just said there is work related.
Yep.
But I'm like getting to the end of my career, right? And so I'm thinking about, well, what next?
Mhm.
And so his thing there about define your vision and your goal, and then what you just said about have it, personal, because I was thinking about triggers, trauma, blah, blah, blah. And when I think about the future without work, it triggers what happened to me when my dad died. And, that was like a change in career or whatever. And we don't have children or whatever. So I define myself by my job and what have you. So it's just an interesting thing because it's my husband and I that need to have a clear goal, define our goal, and then whatever all those other things were. But it's this one-on-one. I can't think about the big, traumatic, whatever. He and I need to have, this conversation of I'm going to work on this and you can work on that. And then together we can, maybe do these things because it was traumatic for him too, because it was a family-owned business and we worked together and, whatever. So we both kind of have this thing that we ignore. That might be our trigger. We don't talk about that, but it's certainly a trigger when we think about the future or where we're at sometimes financially and stuff.
So I want to ask you a question. So we talked about it earlier, like in my mind, it's the analogy is the boat. Those that are paddling, moving us in a direction, or they're moving towards something. There's those in the boat that are kind of like chilling out, like, okay, I'm just going to hang out. And then those that are trying to sink the boat. Mm-hmm. So the fors and against.
Okay.
And you and I have different approaches on how we deal with people in rooms that they are on board and they are engaged and they want more.
Yep.
And people in rooms that we call them resistors, but people that maybe are fighting why they're in the room or what we're trying to do. So that kind of brings it back to some of that conversation. So can you share yours just because I think it's a good conversation.
Yeah. So, and if you want to hear more, sign up for, what are we calling it? the cultivation crew.
Yes.
Because we're gonna dive real deep into like the
Yes.
facilitation techniques and blah blah blah.
Yes.
That'll be Friday. Anyways, a little quick story. So I used to, when I was facilitating, trying to get people on the same page and get people engaged, I used to want to get or feel like I failed if I didn't have every son of a gun in the room excited and enjoying the thing. And that, it's not possible, right? People, there's gonna be haters, there's gonna be mean girls, right? Like all the time. And so I was keynoting at a thing, and there was like 800 people there, kids, high school kids, teachers, and I saw one, I'll never forget, lazy dog teacher in the front row who fell asleep. He was like, right? So I had 799 people's attention. Who was I focused on?
Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
The scrub that was asleep. I mean, I'm talking smack about him because you hurt my feelings, but I don't know what was going on with them. And I underserved the rest of the audience. So for about a minute, I was distracted, trying to get this person's attention, totally taking for granted that I had everybody else's attention. I had a responsibility to everybody else. And so I finally gained my composure and screw him. And like, I'm just gonna have fun, be awesome. And so from that point forward, the way I handle the haters, I call them scrubs, right? Like if you're not ready to play and get uncomfortable, you're a scrub. And that's okay. You don't have to be forever, but if you want to be, go ahead. I just ignore them. My philosophy is feed the hungry.
Mhm.
So people that are interested, that are eager, that are willing, and that are open, I'm going to invest in you. If you ain't, fine. I don't have energy for you. That's my approach.
Right. And so again, because of my role, I'm in a lot of different places. So I can't just say this is what I do every time. But for me, I'm in a lot of rooms with a group of people, and it can be 15 or it can be 30 on a pretty regular basis. And they're all people either coming into my company or new or whatever. And so it's I have a captive audience. And there are times where I can tell there are people in the room that are there because they were made to be in the room.
Right.
Mhm.
And again, it's every employee goes through it, but the point is they're there and they could be on the job site, they could be other places. And I am they spend a day with me. And so and I can tell very early those that maybe have very loud voices, maybe their approach to people and respect and things is a little different than maybe how I approach things, but also how our company talks about things. And those people I can identify pretty early. And so again, Jesse, this is where Jesse and I talked about for him, and I'm just going to paraphrase, if he was in that room, okay, he can just sit over there and be on his phone. Like I'm not messing. If as long as he's not distracted.
Yep.
And here, and for me, I'm not saying it becomes a challenge. I'm not going to change what I'm doing in the room. I just now use him in every example. Not bad. Not bad. It's not bad. It's now if I'm doing so we're at the job site and Joe is leading a meeting and Joe is the guy, but now Joe is involved in the conversation because everyone's looking at Joe, even though Joe's over there and doesn't want to be here. And I do that for the whole meeting.
That is
And I told Jesse and I said, and I told him and I said, there's never been a time, and I don't use that word very often, that by the end of the meeting, this was great. Thanks for that. And it's so subtle and it's so not, and I don't attack him. I don't call him out in front of the room, but he's him and maybe now him and Betty or whatever, but I use him in every example. Hey, why don't, this, you said this earlier. Can you dig into that? Like it's literally,
He's become the star
and
of the show.
it changes the way, wherever they were at the beginning, even if they don't leave there and now they're a whole different person, whatever the purpose was for that meeting, like he was involved in. Mm-hmm. And so it's he and I talk about that for and against. Sometimes even if we know they're trying to do it, that doesn't mean there's something in them, that human part of them, that you can't like kind of pick apart and bring in. So anyway, that was a conversation we had.
Yes. Well, I think what I think is rather what I hope the omniverse, the tribe gets from that is like, I don't know that one's right or wrong.
No, right, exactly. And feed the hungry is a very good approach, and I do that as an organizational level.
Yeah.
But when I'm in rooms, like I have to make a decision. Yes.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And so along the same lines of thinking, Maria shares that we have our responsibilities to those we care about and want to interact with on a regular basis to help those with triggers to not encounter them. And thank you for the example. Surprise pranks for someone with PTSD or the other letters. If I know someone battles those, I'm not going to instigate their triggers.
As in hiding behind a door and scaring the shit out of someone when they walked in after and there's no one there.
That was messed up.
Like you're not in a place to go, well, we'll just push through it and you'll get back. Like you're not in a place to do that for someone else.
I don't know. That's why I brought it up. Like, I'm not sure.
I think she's saying so like if you choose to, if you care about somebody, this is not like the general people you encounter in the world. If you care about somebody and you also know based on their history and what you know about them that there are triggers that they have, then like if you actually care about this person, don't be a dick and intentionally like intentionally try to get a response. Like her PTSD example makes perfect sense. If you are married to somebody who is a veteran and they have PTSD, whether they're working on it or not working on it is irrelevant. You care about them, and you know that loud noises. Like, don't take them to the 4th of July celebration, right? Like,
This is setting this. Oh,
You're triggering her.
I know. I didn't know.
It's not a trigger. It's that example.
Yeah.
I have a child that does not respond well to loud yelling. Does that mean I don't yell at her? No. Do I know when I'm doing it that is never going to help the conversation get better? Yes. Do I still do it because it is how I react? And then as it's happening, I can see what's happening in front of me. And I have to either go, you did this, or then it becomes so much bigger than it needs to be. Yes, all of that. And it doesn't mean I don't love her to death.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that I don't know that ahead of time. But situations sometimes, like it's conscious because I can feel myself doing it and I can see how I'm responding. Does that make me bad? Does that make me a bad mom? Like I'm aware of it and I know it and I see it. Like I still have to like work on that all the dang time.
I think there's a balance, right? So like I agree. If somebody you love and care about and you're choosing to have in your life, sure, take care of them, take care of their feelings. But for me personally, I'll just share a little bit of my own story. My ex-husband, not my current husband who's here right now, but my ex-husband struggled with a lot of mental health issues. But he was like squarely living in the victim mentality and he refused to do anything about it, right? And so yeah, for a long time in the beginning of our relationship, I tried to accommodate that. Like, so for example, he had pretty severe germophobia and it centered around me and our house. And so like I would come home from work and I would have to immediately take off all of my outside clothes at the front door. And if I was wearing like a skirt, he would wipe my legs down with Clorox wipes. Oh, literally. And so for a while, I'm like, well, this is his house too. He needs to be able to feel comfortable in his house too. And I would accommodate that. But at some point, it like the scales shifted, right? Because it was like, okay, but you're not doing anything to get better. It's one thing for me to say, to your point earlier, you're actively on this journey of self-improvement. I'm not going to demand immediate change. I'll go with you on the journey as long as you're actually on the journey.
Right.
But when you're not even taking the steps to get better, and you're like, this is just the life I'm going to choose to live, and it impacts you, then at some point, it's okay for me, and I had to work through this in therapy for many years before I realized that it was okay for me to say a boundary, right? Like, okay, then that's the life you want. I don't want that. And I'm not a bad person for not staying in this marriage, right? So I agree with the concept, but yes, right? Like, yes, and you can also take care of yourself. You don't always have to prioritize the other people, even the ones you care about, to your own detriment.
Yes. Oof. Yes.
Yes. Like martyrdom is not healthy.
No.
So I'm posting the link to the after party because Maria and Steve Martin or am I throwing this stuff?
No, I think he already owned it. He's gonna join.
Okay,
He's
so
gonna join. I did add them both. Yes.
They are going to be hosting the after party because we are all going to be here getting super vulnerable, right? Like, so let's do that because I just like to trigger people. What, like, were y'all just super, y'all here in the room, just like, man, I need to find a place to go be vulnerable because I love doing that. And I'm so glad you have this thing happening this weekend.
No.
I feel like it was a bait and switch. I feel like I was tricked. I didn't know what I was getting into. I'm happy to be here, but I did for me, I didn't realize. I was like Jen and Jesse, and then when I found out that Rocio and Lien were coming too, it was like bonus and West Coast. Like I was in before I even knew what we were doing. So then when I found out, it was like, oh, that's what I made up. Okay.
He was in San Diego. How could I say no, right? You guys are going to be here in my hometown, Jen and Jess. Yeah, no. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, what an awesome way to connect with everyone. But then when I saw the bungee jumping, I was like, wait a minute. I already had paid. I'm like, me. Yep. Hold on. I even messaged them like, hey, is this? He's like, don't worry. Like, I've never done this before.
Yeah. I paid, and then I was like, wait, what are we doing?
What?
I was talking about my feelings. What?
Yeah. Yeah. I love, well, and I think we talked about this yesterday, maybe at dinner or something, but so vulnerability is like a thing that I appreciate. And I can't say, hey, let's have this thing and be vulnerable because we're going to be vulnerable if I'm never vulnerable. Is that
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And I think because, so one thing for the Omniverse and for y'all, because we're about to transition out, is rather, before I say that, when you hear the word vulnerable, what do you think that looks like? What do you think that means, Rocio?
It means opening up with no judgment. Just like here I am. This is who I am. Here.
Okay, I like that.
Saying the things out loud that I don't want to say out loud.
Okay.
A bunch of crying.
Oh,
Like, oh man. Facing stuff is going to make me cry. I want to cry.
For me, it's taking my armor off.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
And you?
Me, it's just sharing the dirty details. Like, I've accomplished some pretty awesome things, and I've shit the bed along the way.
I'm a visual.
But like, I've tripped, I've fallen, I've screwed things up, I've offended people, I've hurt people, and talking about all of it it's rather, I'll say it this way, and I like your explanation. It's like it's just sharing the truth of the whole thing, not just the highlights. It's not just the highlight reel, right? And so now, does it cause tears? Well, it depends if you want to win the vulnerability competition today. No, like sometimes it does, right? Because I think in some cases, I'm going somewhere with this. I think in some cases for so long, rather, when I started doing it, I suppressed so much of what was actually happening because I didn't want to be judged or I didn't want, like, whatever. And then when I finally started opening up and sharing the truth and removing the armor and saying the thing that I didn't want to say, the sky didn't fall down. And the flood of emotion that I had been compacting in for so long came out in tears. And so I think there's like, it's not crying because we think vulnerability is crying and spilling our guts and giving you my PIN number and my social security number. Like, it can be that. But I think it's as easy as just opening up and sharing what you've been thinking, right? Like the conversation we've been having, I'm going to say that, and even in the comments, like it's not like everybody is saying, yes, I agree, I agree, I agree. There's some comments that are like, no, that's this. Oh, good. And so there's vulnerability in saying,
I'm
like,
not just saying yes.
yes. Yeah. So it can be small and it can be super big. Who we got there? We got.
Crying was the end game because it was all of that. And I saw it end with the
Shitting beds and retreats is frowned upon.
I am so much.
Yeah. All right, so I put the link.
Man, look at you here, buddy.
I know.
Oh no, Lance made the wise decision. He is spending time with the family. today.
Family
Yeah,
first.
super, super.
But we do appreciate you being on today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you are missed.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got 5 minutes. I put the link to the after party. So folks, if y'all, Maria, Steve, all the awesome tribe members are gonna be at the after party. We're gonna be doing other stuff. Hit the link, join, connect, support each other. Folks, if we didn't get to bring your comment on here, it's not because we don't love you and we're ignoring you. Some of them don't make it through, but afterwards we'll go back and demonstrate appreciation. Lurkers, you're amazing. Thank you for lurking. Keep coming back. And let's go with the round of closing thoughts. Closing thought.
Oh man, thank you guys for letting me in your space.
Okay, nice.
This is a dream come true, getting to be with all of you people in person, and I'm just really appreciative and grateful to be here.
Yeah, likewise. It's amazing to be able to connect with everyone. I know everybody through LinkedIn. It's just amazing to connect live.
In person.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so awesome.
Okay, closing thoughts for me, and I'm trying to like think about everything we've talked about today, and I think the biggest thing is let's remember, because I grew up single father, 3 younger brothers, lots of responsibility, but also that was my reality. So it doesn't scare me to push back. It doesn't scare me to be in rooms where I have men protecting me, but also men that are going to push me and make me cry and things like that. Like that stuff doesn't scare me. So let's just remember every room we are in and people are making choices and saying things, they all are coming from some experience. And so don't think that it's all about you because of some response or something, how they're showing up. Like kind of take a breath and listen. And, and then again, if you need to ask better questions or ask more questions, we have a way to do that too. But just be aware that like all of us are human and all of us are coming in with baggage and triggers and all the things we talked about today. But it's usually not about you.
Damn. Unless it's about me, then it is.
It's usually always about Jesse. What about you, Jesse?
So, well, Jeremy says, great chat all the way through. Thank you, brother. I want to share this link because Rihanna is like super awesome. That's what it is. Cozy, juicy, real. It's like an online interaction, interactive experience. She has 2 a month. There's a link. Sign up. I've done it. I got to hang out with Alan.
Okay,
And
yeah.
we did this.
Oh.
It's so good. It's so good. I want to make sure people have the opportunity to connect with that. My closing thought is this. Back to the overarching thought here is like, how do you build a movement like a baller? We touched on advocating for each other. We talked about like understanding. Don't be a cheerleader for everybody because then you lose credibility, but support the people you believe in. We talked about psychological safety, triggers, and different frameworks and perspectives. And so my closing thought is this. There is no one silver bullet. But in terms of building a movement, building a community, and making magnificent things happen, at the very least, it's entertaining a conversation where people can share their perspectives. Like start learning how to do that. And that's the foundation from my perspective from which to grow something. If you like the negative energy, like if you have a rebel activist spirit, do that and know that you're doing that. If you want to, be lovey-dovey, contribute to the greater good and be all positive and rainbows and unicorns, do that. But to start, you got to invite people in and you have to get an alignment and understanding of what people's perspectives are from so that people can decide, yes, I want to be on that team or not. Yeah?
Yep.
Yes.
Right on.
All right, folks. We'll see y'all next time. That was fun.
Oh my goodness.
We're still